I did.
Okay, making sure.
Take care of it.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
She thinks she's funny.
I'm good, you doing okay?
Good old man.
All right.
Y'all ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock, June 27th, 2023. It's time once again for our monthly meeting of the Board of Directors for Glasgow Electric Plant Board. This time I'll call the meeting to order. First item on tonight's agenda, we'll consider approving the agenda. We got a little bit larger than the usual agenda, but that's okay. Is there any questions on that or anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion, Lowry?
Motion by Lowry,
Second Rowlett.
second by Riley. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is we'll consider the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. I looked over them, I didn't see any discrepancies or anything. Did anybody see anything? They all looked in order to me. So this time I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting as presented.
Motion.
Motion by Oliver,
Second, Lowry?
second by Lowry. If there's no discussion, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Number 3, we'll consider to ratify the actions of the programming committee. I guess Dave's going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the programming committee met, I believe it was in May 9th, and I'll have Eddie, we'll turn over to Eddie Russell to just discuss the Turner Networks agreement that was recommended for acceptance by the programming committee.
So the Turner Networks are CNN, TBS, TNT, a few others, but it was just a contract renewal, and at this time we did anticipate dropping those, so we got the committee to approve that, and we had to have a deadline by June the 19th to turn into NCTC, so that's already renewed and in front of you all now.
I don't have anything further to
Is there
add.
anything else need to be added to that? Or?
Not at this time.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the actions of the Cable Television Programming Committee as reported.
Motion.
Motion, Stevens,
Second Rowlett.
second Rowlett. Any discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Number 4, we'll take a look at the write-offs at this time.
Yeah, so twice a year, we write off accounts, and they're sent to collections. These write-offs are generally 6 to 12 months behind because we give customers the opportunity to pay the bill, work through issues they may be having. But then at some point, we draw the line and turn them over to collections, and then we write off those amounts. And I think to give a little bit more information, I'll just turn over to Melanie to describe the process.
Okay, yeah, like you said, we send the customer their final bill, and if it's not paid, we'll send them a second notice of the final bill, and then we give them, depending on the timing, it's 6 to 12 months, because we're always looking at 6 months behind to pay that bill. You know, sometimes they don't realize they had a final bill, it may not have been forwarded to their new address, just multiple things. If it's not paid, then they do end up on our write-off list, and then that is approved by you all and sent to our collection agency. So they then pursue those write-offs for us at 30% commission. And we also continue to, when customers come in to set service, we'll see if they owe us any bills, and we can collect them at that time as well.
And even on the bills that we end up collecting, we still pay the collection
We do
agency.
pay. If it's been turned over to the collection agency, we do pay.
Now, these are all customers too that they no longer have service with us.
Correct.
So
Right.
they've been cut off.
Right.
Shut off or whatever. So-
If someone comes in to reapply for the service, they can't get service though until they pay their old bill.
They can get prepay service. So the board decided, I guess it was a year or so, maybe a couple years ago,
It was before my time.
okay, that if they do owe an old bill, they cannot go on monthly billing. So unless they pay that off.
Okay.
If they pay that off, then yes, they can. If they don't, then we put them on prepay, and they do pay, depending on how large it is, they do have to pay so much down on that. And then we allow them to pay, going forward, anytime they make a payment on their prepay, half of that goes towards that old bill until it's paid off. And then once they do pay it off, they can switch to monthly.
Are the figures that we are looking at, is that a normal 6-month,
It is.
pretty average?
Yeah, it normally stays about the same unless, now, right after COVID, of course, it went up because we had that period where we couldn't collect on anything.
Right.
But unless we just have a huge bill for some reason, and we've tried to not do those now because we collect on all commercial accounts for deposit. So, yeah, they don't fluctuate a lot.
Okay. Thanks, Mel.
Okay. Is there anything else?
I don't have anything to add, no.
Nothing else to add to this? Okay. Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the list of biannual write-offs as presented.
Motion?
Motion by Lowry,
Approve. Second.
second by Stevens. If there's no further discussion, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item, we'll consider the approval of the amendments to the current fiscal year budget.
Yeah, so the annual budget process really has, or financial process has 3 steps. One is approving the budget for the upcoming fiscal year, and that's actually the next item on the agenda for 2024. And then, as we're getting to the end of the year, we are required to present a amended budget, but it's really actual, and then what we think like this last month is going to look like, so that it's an amended budget for the fiscal year, in this case 2023. The final step in the process then is when we close the books and have the audit performed, that's the actual results for 2023, and that'll be presented in October. So tonight what this is presenting the amended budget for year-end June 30, 2023, and compared to the original budget. So with that, I'll turn it over to Melanie to walk through it a little bit.
So you all do approve this budget. This is not like the city's budget where we have, so much money and then it gets moved between by the board approving it. This is really just a projection, but we are required now by the Department of Local Government with the state of Kentucky to file this. So you all do have to see it, approve a budget, and then it gets filed with them. So that's where this amended budget is coming from. And like Dave said, this is real, and you all see this every month with the financials. It shows you what, more of a breakdown, by expense item, what those are. And you see how we're doing compared to what we had projected at the beginning of the year. So that's what you're looking at here is the amendments and where we think we will be now by the end of the year.
And as we walk through it, the revenues are up slightly compared to projection, but also so is the expenses and cost of goods sold are up slightly. We have some higher dividend income and interest than what was projected. The bottom line is essentially we're $150,000 lower than what was originally projected, which I think is actually pretty good given all that's gone on, so that's the amended budget.
Okay, any other questions or concerns on this? If not, then I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendments for the current fiscal year 2023. So Pritchard with a motion.
Second, Lowry.
Second, Lowry. Any questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item, we'll consider the approval of the budget for 2024 fiscal year.
Yeah, so this is the first step now in fiscal year 2024. So this year's budget shows a net income of roughly 1.6 million. And that's about 300,000 lower than what we had projected for fiscal year 2023. It's about 150,000 lower than what actual 2023 was. One of the big reasons for that is within this budget is increased tree trimming amount. We increased it to 400,000 from, I believe it was 180.
240.
Or 240 in last year's budget. Also, a lot of expenses have gone up, but with the change in personnel, we had a lot of retirees this year, this calendar year, and within there was a fair amount of overlap as we brought new people in to train while the retiring employees were still here. So all of that is really working itself out. And this budget as presented for fiscal year 2024 doesn't include, there's no electric rate increase contemplated in the budget. And so, I think expenses are staying pretty well under control, even though we're seeing a lot of increase in cost just due to inflation and things. And where we're probably seeing a larger increase in cost is in the capital budget when we go out for bids on transformers and things like that, which eventually will hit the depreciation portion, but from an operating standpoint, things are pretty even keel. I guess with that, I'll turn it over to Melanie again for anything that she might have to add.
I don't think I have anything.
Okay.
You did a good job.
So that's, our fiscal year 2024 budget is, as presented again. One of the items we'll talk about later is the tree trimming. We went out for bids on that. That's included in this budget, so.
Nothing else to add to this. I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget as presented for fiscal year 2024.
I make a motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Rowley,
Second.
second by Oliver. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. On to number 7, we'll consider the approval of the bid for the purchase of unit number 24 truck.
All right, so in the March 3rd windstorm, our unit 24, which is a small bucket, was hit by a tree, and the wood was crushed, and a few other things were broken on it, and so on. It was totaled by our insurance company, and we did receive a check of $97,000 for that truck. So then, but immediately after it happened, we started the process of leasing a truck from it's Global Rentals, which is an all-tech company. So we leased the truck, and then when we started to think about, okay, how are we going to replace it, we asked them if they'd be willing to sell us that truck. They said they would be, so it was, okay, well, we just have to go through a bid process and see what else is out there, thinking maybe we would find other, used trucks or a new one. All we really ended up with was the bid from Global Rentals, All-Tech, for $112,200, and Terex gave us a bid for a new truck at $244,400 with the lead time that we wouldn't have the truck until third quarter of 2025. So one of the reasons we were interested in purchasing this truck that we're renting from All-Tech is that Brian Gruber, who was the primary driver of this truck, immediately liked it. He liked it better than his old 24, we call it old 24 and new 24. It has a jib crane, and it was very familiar also. It's the same bucket boom that they were used to using. So he liked it. And so we went out for the bids, and our recommendation is to accept the All-Tech bid, Global Rentals, of $112,200 to replace the bucket truck. The net cost to us really is $15,000 after receiving the insurance check. Couple more things on this truck we're looking to buy is that it's got higher mileage than what our old 24 did, but it's highway miles. You know, it's a rental that has covered a lot of ground. The hours on the bucket boom are actually a lot lower than the old 24. And we anticipate that we should get a useful life out of it of at least 5 years, and hopefully longer. So,
Is that a normal course?
so for years, we would work in that 5 or 6 year time frame to replace a truck. More recently, it's been more like, you know, the 7, 8, 9 years. So I think that, you know, this is a 2018 truck versus the 2015 it's replacing, but it is, it just doesn't seem like it's been overly used. It seems like it's lightly used. And so we anticipate, yeah, it should be, there's no reason to think it won't last at least 5 years.
So will you guys, along the line of the trucks, will you guys start some type of rotation program?
Yeah,
You know,
we-
where we plan to replace so many
Yeah.
trucks every so many years, or?
Yeah.
We do now, it was every 5 years. And
Right.
it's getting so hard to come by anymore.
That's what I was getting at with the lead time, you know,
Right.
2025, third
Yeah.
quarter, so it's like,
We ordered 2 trucks about 3 years ago, and we get to see them, so.
okay.
Yeah.
Of course, we always have the leasing option to fall back on.
And that's
If
something
it's-
that, you know, I think we'll talk about at a future meeting.
Yeah.
Is how we go about acquiring these vehicles in the future. I know that
Yeah.
there are some local power companies that are switching to more of a lease scenario. I haven't looked into it enough to say any more than that really.
No, I just-
But that's, you know,
Sounds like good work.
yeah.
Yep.
So,
Any other questions or anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the bid for a used bucket truck from Alltech for $112,200.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, have a motion by Stevens,
I'll second it.
second by Ravlet. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Number 8, we'll consider the approval of a bid from the tree trimming.
Yeah, so, as I mentioned in the budget, we increased the tree trimming to $400,000. And that roughly gives us, in conjunction with this bid, gives us crew working for us for the entire year.
Because before you did not have that, correct?
We didn't, we had, you know, with the budget that we had, it allowed us to have them for probably, you know, 2/3 of the year. And so we stopped doing our trimming in January or February, and then we just recently brought them back on in May. So there was a couple months where we weren't doing much tree trimming because we were at the budget. And what we've seen is just a continued trend in increasing in outages, and it's really all related to trees and varmints, you know. So we just really need to get into this, heavy into the cycle trimming, have our crew working for us all year to maintain the right-of-ways on the distribution lines. So we went out for bids to see what, we put it at 40 weeks, you know, we were essentially committing to the contractor that we would hire them for 40 weeks. Now, the amount of money that we put into the budget essentially gives us like 46.5 weeks at this bid. With weather and other things, that's going to be, you know, basically keeping them on full-time. We may go a little bit over budget if we, you know, there might be, especially with outage work like we've had, there might be a little bit over budget in the tree trimming, but for the most part, I think it's going to give us that full year for cycle trimming. So, so what we recommend is that we accept. We went out for bids. The other thing is that contractors really aren't overly interested in talking to us if it's spot work. You know, they want to be able to allocate a crew and just be here working. Now, we still only received 2 bids when we went out for bids. We gave plenty of time to have other bids come in. So we received 2 bids. Next year, we'll go out for bids again in May probably. But for this year, our recommendation is to accept the tree KO bid of $8,600 per week as presented. So
Have we used them before?
that's who we're using. Yeah, that's who we're using now. Yeah. So they know our system. They know us. Trade works with them pretty much on a daily basis. I don't know if you have anything to add with.
We've used them the past 3 years. They do a good job, so.
And, when it comes to the outages like we've had, they're very responsive. They're just similar to our own staff. They're ready to roll when we call them.
I called them at midnight, Sunday night, and they were here within just a few hours. And I had
They
over
brought it up.
13 storm hours. If I can keep them out in front of us, where the linemen don't have to cut on a tree and then put a wire back up in the air, it saves a lot of time.
So they've been a good contractor for us to use.
So this is normal trimming conditions, but now if we have another windstorm, that price would go up per week,
Well,
is that right?
They charge us an hourly rate for their crew. And, if they're paying overtime, if they're having to pay their crews overtime, we would get charged the overtime rate. But generally speaking, even when we have them working, outside of normal, they charge us basically the same, unless there's overtime involved. So.
And the contract that we have, it stipulates that in there, that upon emergency situation, we would negotiate rates with them.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve Tree KO's bid of $8,600 per week to provide a tree trimming crew for the fiscal year 2024. We'll have a motion.
Motion?
Motion by Lowry,
Second.
second by Rowley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Number 9, we'll consider the modifications to the rules and regulations.
Yeah, so the last meeting, we presented the rules and regulations to give the board an opportunity to read through them. I think everyone's had a chance to look at them, and really the primary changes proposed in the modifications aren't significant, but it is in the Section 9 extension of services. The way it was worded before, it gave us the ability to charge a contribution in aid of construction, but it really didn't have any guidelines. And so what that ended up is, the engineers that are dealing with the customer either deciding on their own how they're going to do it, or always having questions on, okay, what should we bill for this? So what we did is we put that into some pretty clear language where a certain amount of footage is provided. If it's within a certain amount of feet of our existing lines, it's at our cost. And then anything above that is at the actual estimated cost. So that's the main change in the rules and regs. And then there was some wording changes. So once these are approved by the board as presented tonight, they go to TVA for TVA's review. And if TVA has any recommendations or changes that they want to see, we would come back to the board with those. And if the board's okay with any changes that TVA approves, or if TVA just says, yeah, they're fine, we'll come back to the board one last time and just have the board approve them to put them in place. So this step is really to say, okay, yep, this document's ready to send to TVA. I don't think I have anything much else to say about that.
Dave, that number 2, I'd never heard of paying interest on a, security deposit. Talk about that, just kind
Yeah,
of, why don't we talk about that a little bit?
I'll turn that one over to Melanie because she's familiar with
I just never
where that
heard
comes
of,
from.
paying, interest on a
Yeah, that's
security
been in
deposit.
place since I've been here. And actually, it used to be paid at 6%. which was then
Is that
pretty
a-
hefty amount.
Is that a requirement from this? Are we required to pay that?
I don't know, to be honest. I can't answer that, whether or not it's a requirement. I'll have
That's
to
my
check on
understanding,
that.
so a lot of times I default back to where I came from. In Michigan, the state required 5%. And when the interest rates were down around 0.5%, it was a pretty good deal for someone to
Yes,
keep
right.
some money in security
And
deposit with us.
I think it is a requirement, but I don't want to say yes and then it's not. But then the board decided to change it to to match the one-year treasury bill rate on the first business day of the year. Now we've changed it, I think it said the first Monday, now it's the first business day.
And that way, when customers are required to have a security deposit with us, you know, it's, the fact that they have money sitting with us is softened by the fact that we pay them interest on it, so.
But I'll get you an answer for sure.
And that applies to just residential, where somebody might have to make a small deposit.
Right.
And then, yeah, like I said, a lot of the other changes in it were the wording, so. But the interest on the security deposits hasn't been really an issue. Because we're actually, we're earning money on the money that we have. In fact, we just recently parked some money in CDs at some attractive rates. So it's not costing us anything, the net cost to us isn't really any big issue, so.
So it's like a win-win on both ends.
Yeah, I think the customer, they have to have money on deposit with us, it's a requirement, but at least they're earning something when they have it, so. I guess I don't have anything else to add in that regard.
And then the iPay, I can't remember, we talked about that a little bit. Does that require a special meter on the?
It does. It does have to have one of our AMI meters, the electronic meter, so it can be read daily, and they're charged daily for their usage, and then also so we can remote disconnect and reconnect.
That's basically the same meter we have on everybody's.
It is, yeah. We started off with probably trying to put, half? Half?
Anything we
We
order now is
started,
disconnected.
right, but when we first started, I think we tried to hit the apartment buildings and more of the
Where there was
locations
turnover.
where there's a lot of turnover, and then over the years, we've tried to now just convert the whole system to those type of meters. So, yeah, it's probably 90% now,
I'd say that's 75.
so about 75%, yeah.
So it's a special meter, but it's a meter that we're using throughout the system.
Yes.
It's the AMI meter.
So literally, the flick of a switch, you can disconnect or reconnect somebody's service, is that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
That has one of those meters.
Yeah, that has the type meter.
Right. So all of our meters can be remotely read, but they have to be also able to be disconnected to be on prepaid.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to accept the modifications to the rules and regulations and approve sending them to the TVA for their review.
I make a motion.
Have a motion by Rowlett,
Second.
second by Stevens. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Number 10, the superintendent's report. Mr. Dave.
So we've got the usual fuel cost adjustment. The average fuel cost adjustment for July is at 2.463 cents per kilowatt hour. That's just up slightly from June's rate of 2.407 cents, so really not much of a change there. And then in the outage department, we have, again, 23 total outages for May. The 3 outages under other were actually one single car pole accident. But it's registered as 3 outages. But you can see that, you know, the trees and the animals, those 12 are really, a lot of those are due to the trees growing in the right of way. Unknown, when you look at the spreadsheet on for those items that were unknown, means we didn't find any particular cause, but in almost every case, it's the underbrush or was grown up underneath the lines. And so, you know, again, we have to really get on top of the right-of-way clearing over the next couple of years to reduce just the onesie-twosie type outages. Even in a scenario with the storm that we had Sunday night, you know, having the right-of-ways cleared is going to help reduce some of those issues. Now, a lot of times we have a tree that falls from outside the right-of-way that comes and takes down our line or breaks a pole or whatever. You know, that's not going to change because, you know, our right-of-way is only going to be so wide, and there's going to be a lot of trees that can fall and still take stuff down, but it'll help even in those scenarios. So you know, the 23, we had 44 in May, and I didn't review exactly why it was. It was a lot of animals and a lot of weather related last year in May. This year, the 23 May outages were similar to 2021 as far as the number, but that's still just too many. You know, that's averaging, you know, close to 1 a day unscheduled outage, and we really are going to begin to. We already are doing work to always reduce outages, but with this new tree trimming cycle that we're going to on, it should improve that even more. So, I think here, you know, under this outage, this is still a superintendent report. It's an outage report, so this is a good time for us to talk about, you know, this weekend. It's not really outage over the weekend. It started on Sunday night at 11:30 and into Monday. I think, Wade, I'll turn it over to you and Trig just to say a few things about what happened.
Of course, ultimately, the storm onset, you know, around that 11 o'clock time or just before that. At one point, we had all but one distribution breaker was locked out. We were able to get most of those back on in a pretty quick manner. Get those restored. We wound up with 5 broken poles. And as we sit here right now, they've just finished this afternoon and all power has been restored. We've got a little less than 100 customers on our broadband network that are still out due to multiple reasons. We did have one fiber circuit that was damaged and ultimately out for quite some time yesterday. Our fiber contractor that we're using on our fiber to the home project, they come in and helped us with that for a little bit. And we're able to get that pulled back across the creek down here off South Lewis, between South Lewis and Temple Trace. If y'all remember, in the March storm, we had a transmission pole broke with the same pole line. The creek was way up, some trees got in it, and ultimately damaged the fiber. But like I said, we were able to get that back up. So a couple things to add is that we lost the TVA feed at one point. TVA had an outage on their transmission system, and that, you know, caused our circuits to also be offline. So we have 22 distribution circuits in it. That's right. And
all of them were locked out except for one, and that was out of our East Glasgow sub. One circuit was on. So essentially, you know, out of our 7,600 meters, it's safe to say that over 6,000 were off at some point. When the TVA feed came back up, we watched our system start to recover. You know, once the power came back to Haywood substation, you know, watch our stuff come back on, which was a great relief. So, and that probably was less than 2 hours, I think.
It was.
Yeah. So then it was now figuring out what was wrong on our side, because without the TVA feed, it's really it's hard to even diagnose what might be wrong on our side. We started to drive things out and look, but you just don't know where the problem's really going to lie. So that's when we started the recovery process. And I would say all the circuits were back on, the primary circuits were back on by early morning. And then it was, finding where smaller outages that still were affecting maybe, 50, up to 50 or 60 customers, but it wasn't the entire circuit locked out, so. And then, let's see, there was something else I was going to say about the,
Every one of those outages that we had to go find what was wrong, had something to involve with the tree.
I don't remember the other point I was going to make, so I'll just leave it there for now. Let's see, so then moving on to update on, let me back up. Does anyone have any questions on this recent outage?
We just appreciate everything you all do, and going out in the middle of the night in that weather. I was sitting at home thinking about you all and just praying you'd be safe, and I don't know that we all realize just how dangerous it is when you all go out there blind.
Yeah, it's a challenge in the dark, especially, But one of the things that is extremely true about our crew is that when that happens, everyone is really ready to pitch in, and it's interesting to watch the dynamic as it starts to unfold. So I know the other point I was going to make had to do with really for all of our board and even some of our employees, but also the customers on the broadband side. With the way this, the broadband network works is when there's a power outage that affects the amplifier or other equipment that's out on the line, or if that power is out to that piece of equipment, it affects service to the customer. So even if the customer has power and everything looks good, if the devices that are serving that customer don't have power, they're not going to have broadband. So that's a frustration for customers, because they're like, why don't I have broadband service? Nothing seems to be wrong. Well, it's more than likely wherever their amplifier is or other equipment serving them, there's a power outage, especially in these widespread cases. So a lot of our customers are in Glasgow, and so if they don't have power, there's likely they don't have internet. But also a lot of them are out on farmers' surrounding territory, and when you start to get into those rural areas, especially, the way our broadband network runs may not necessarily coincide with the way farmers' power distribution runs. So they might have an outage someplace that is affecting our equipment, but it's not affecting the customer that has our broadband service. So it's a difficult thing for people to understand sometimes. When they have power and everything seems fine, why isn't the internet working? So.
A reassurance, I know your phone lines went down for a period of time based on the messages that went out. If someone is trying to contact you about their electric being out, you all probably already know that. Even with phone lines down, is that?
Yes.
Especially when it's an entire neighborhood out.
Yeah.
I think people panic if they can't get through, but.
We're working on a solution to that would be able to handle more calls, and we've had some serious issues with Windstream lately, with service going down. I don't know what that's all about, but we're working on a solution that'll be coming to the board at some point. But yes, generally speaking, we're going to know about it. But the other thing is we do encourage customers to reach out to us in some way, because we don't necessarily know. Especially a customer that is kind of off by themselves somewhere on the network, on the distribution system. There may be just a transformer fuse on their transformer, and we aren't going to necessarily know that right away. Eventually, we get meter reports that say, well, why is this meter showing no power? And we would find it then. But that's not necessarily going to happen within the first few hours. So
the online trouble tickets, in addition, if you can't get through by phone, you've got your cell phone, you can.
Yes, because we have somebody that monitors those.
Yeah. We're also working with the state on funding for an outage management system.
Okay.
Those, and these are things that aren't even on, they're not even ready to be on the new business yet because they're still in the development stage, but an outage management system so that customers can see how many, where the outages are and how many people are affected. That information is extremely helpful for customers. They just, I think more than anything, people want to know that we're working, of course, on it, and that, okay, well, I see there's a lot of outages. Eventually, they're gonna, get to my situation. The work, there's a lot of outage situations where the fix is relatively quick. A fuse blew because a tree fell through the line, but it literally fell through the line, caused the outage, but now it's cleared and nothing got broke. That's just replacing a fuse. Others with a broken pole, it's probably going to take, best case scenario, 4 or 5 hours to replace that broken pole and get everything transferred over to the new pole. Especially when there's, if it's a transformer pole or something like that. So, yeah. So I think that we can conclude the outage report there, unless there's another question.
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if there's no other questions on, well, we can move on to the next item. But
I have one more question.
Sure.
When the storm is actually still existing,
Yeah.
and some of the electric power is out, do the utility people go out there in the midst of the storm?
It depends. Generally, yes.
I'm just wondering.
I sent a text to Trig because we could see the storm was coming to an end, and I just texted Trig and I said, let's just wait till this is over before we go out. It was only like a half hour from being done, so we, and then after that major storm passed, the weather wasn't really too big of a factor at that point. On the other hand, if it's raining and the customer calls and is out in more of a one-off situation, yeah, we're out there in the rain, all the time, and wind. And
Just not the lightning.
There's a lot of lightning.
Yeah, I was at the hospital and it went out.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, if you could see the lightning, you could actually see the storm coming, the room I was in.
Yeah.
You could just watch it come towards you. I was thinking about you all. I went lightning, I was, oh Lord.
Okay. That's all superintendent.
No, we got one more yet, fiber to the home project update. So I'll turn it over first to Daniel, actually, to give an update on the work that's been done in the head end recently.
Sure. Everything really in the head end as far as what we need is at this point officially, I guess, done. It's actually the good part. We had our fiber splicer from Irving come in the last couple of weeks and finished all the connections leading into the building. We've got all the racks in place, we've got all the electrical hardware in place and actually working. It's powering my house and stuff we already had fiber to before. So at this point, we've lit everything and it's actually exiting the building and now they just, once they splice to an area, it'll be ready to put a customer on it. So the head end is in good shape and done at this point.
And then outside the walls, which is where Daniel's and Josh's responsibility more or less ends at the wall, is the outside plant. And I'll have Wade give an update on where we're at with phase 1.
Sure. Our main aerial line, we're 75% complete. As far as our underground, we have over 12,000 feet of pipe in place. We're 86% complete there, 2 small neighborhoods left to do. Once the pipe's in the ground and they can go ahead and get the aerial completed, then they'll start pulling their underground in after that. Hopefully within, if we can get, we've got a little hold up with some state permitting on some road crossings that's holding us up, but hopefully we've been in communication with them. That process is started now after we've submitted them and trying to get that pushed through. So hopefully next week they'll be back in here and working over those permitted areas. They've actually have been released to go to Warren Rural Electric. They built their system as well, and due to the storm, they're trying to help them with a lot of repairs on their fiber network this week. So hope to have them back Monday. As Daniel said, the head end's pretty much done, or is done, and up and ready to go. So soon as we get the permit completion, we'll be able to finish up our main line and get started pulling wire on the underground.
So it's moving along pretty well.
Are many people pre-signing up for this already, or is it getting any?
Yeah, there are.
interest?
I don't know how many.
It's a couple of hundred
Yeah,
at least.
200, 250 or so have already signed up.
Yeah.
Some that are
Pretty good
less.
response, really. And one other interesting thing about this fiber to the home network is that we just talked about how the broadband is affected by power on the distribution, electric distribution system. If the customer has power at their end or battery backup for their modem and their equipment, their ONT, and of course the head end should theoretically always stay up, they'll be able to, they'll have internet. It won't, as long as there's light at both ends basically, or power at both ends, they'll have the broadband service. So it's, again, a more stable, fiber to the home is going to be a more stable system than what we have right now.
My child will buy a generator to put in his room on the modem.
Yeah. So it'll be the customer's responsibility to have, UPS or battery backup if they want it on their end. But if they do have that, their ONT would stay up and running, and, if they have a laptop computer with a battery or a phone using the home's Wi-Fi, their internet will work.
And this will also provide us with the opportunity to see more of an idea of who's down power-wise. If they have our ONTs and it's down at that point, we'll know.
Yeah.
That's another way, avenue of finding out if the house has power.
That's
on,
true,
too.
yeah.
So,
That's a great point, Daniel. We'll have to think more about that. Okay, anything else on the fiber to the home?
Will we eventually offer UPSs through?
I don't think we're going,
Or just-
well, there's always a chance, I suppose, but I don't, out of the gates, that's not, we're not going
Yeah.
to get into that. I would envision a time when the ONT maybe comes with its self-contained, UPS or something like that, but that we might offer an upgrade. But right out of the gate, I would say we're not going to get into that, because then, even if the UPS trips offline and knocks them out, they're going to probably call us anyway.
Yeah.
But there would be a service call sometimes just to reset a UPS.
Yeah.
That's something that's in the discussion, but right now we're kind of like, I don't know if we want to get into that level.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think other providers have offered that, and they have found it to be a significant
difficult.
headache.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
If you offer phone, you have to.
that's true. Yeah, if you offer
We're
phone
not
service, you
offering
have to.
phone
That's one of the
service.
requirements for phone service. So
Okay.
yeah.
Anyway, just a question.
Yeah, no, it's a very valid question and point. But- Okay. So I think that's it on the superintendent.
Okay, any other questions then? All right, thank you for that report, Dave, and then I appreciate the EPB team coming in and talking to us, coming to our meetings, we appreciate that. We listen to you guys and gals. On to number 11, new business, old business?
Yeah, so just an upcoming agenda item is going to be to review and approve the employee handbook. We'll follow an approach similar to the rules and regs where we give it to the board well ahead of time. Maybe it might even be at next month's meeting. You'll have the month to look at it, ask questions, come in and set up a time if you want to come in to talk with either like myself or Melissa or Melanie about any of it. And then, we'll enact it. It's updating an existing, but it's been a long overdue update, so it's been a lot of cleanup work that Melissa's put a lot of time and effort into. So, yeah, I think that's all I have there. And then, under new old business before we adjourn, I'm going to show a video. At the last meeting, we approved the tower to come down. The keyboard.
Oh, the keyboard.
Eddie's going to make me try to do this. We'll see. See how this works. So at the last meeting, we approved the tower coming down. So this is a video of that. Maybe.
No?
Maybe. I always love technology because it never works when you want it to.
Hang on again. Just hit Control Alt Delete.
What's that?
Hit Control Alt Delete to pull up the login
Oh,
on the keyboard. Hit Control Alt Delete.
oh, Control Alt Delete. I didn't hear you. Okay, here we go. Oh, the disappointment.
Isn't life great?
That O in Glasgow's a 0. David O in Glasgow's a 0.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta love those passwords.
Is it 1-3 or 2-3?
Oh, it's 23.
Aha.
Make the 13 on there.
Eddie's,
There we go.
you're 10 years behind the time.
Take your mouse and just hit the play button over in the left corner.
How many movie it is?
So that's basically the first section. Here's the second. So we had probably 15 or 20 employees out there watching. And a lot of farmers, people, because farmers had to be there because they had some distribution rights.
Who's the musical designer?
I don't know. It's probably something that was free, so.
When that first section came down, there's this part where you can see when it breaks the second time, it sprays water out of the lid that was standing inside.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It was retaining water from the inside out.
So, yeah, one of the things that we discovered is that there was sort of decaying from the inside out. It was really a good move to just take it down. So, after a lot of discussion and fits and starts with different things, in the end, the final decision, or the best decision was made, so. So, yep. So that all happened within the month, you know, the board approved it last month. We did the bidding process and let the bid out. And there it is, so. All right.
Very good.
I think with that, that's, yep, nothing else that I have under new or old business.
Okay, that's all the new or old business then. We'll move on. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion.
Motion by Rowlett,
Second.
second by Stevens. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
I watched a movie on TV